I'm back. It's been a while since I've posted a YouTube video, but I am bringing you a real good one here. So it's been worth the wait. I have invited a friend and student of mine called Lissa Berry to join me here on this video for you all, because Liz and I have a common interest in as much as Liz is a qualified hypnotherapist for over 13 years, and she's also very interested in past lives, reincarnation, the spirit world. She's very, I would say, spiritually awoke. So I love to deep dive on this channel. Obviously, if I bring guests in, it's because we want to share inspiring information, share knowledge, help you to awaken, to be educated, but also to understand there is so much more to this reality and to life than we understand. So I called this channel Together with Spirit because obviously I want to bring people together, as well as me posting inspiring and educational videos, just everyday people coming in, sharing their experiences, making spirituality accessible to you all. We can all connect in with the spirit dimensions. A big passion of mine is to teach this. You know, mediums, myself being a medium of 25 years experience now, we are not special. We have just been crazy enough to sit there and, you know, dedicate our life to our spiritual development. So I wanted to invite lovely Liz here too, because I know she'll be able to really open your minds, and just, we're going to have a real casual conversation, just like friends coming together over a cup of coffee, and you get to sort of just be part of it, watch us as this conversation unfolds. So welcome, Liz. I am so happy that you've joined me here.
It's lovely. It's so lovely to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to come and do this video. I've been so excited about doing it. It's great.
Oh, my pleasure. And do you know what, viewers, we have had this planned for probably a year, haven't we? But the pandemic,
it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, we're just busy ladies, aren't we? We just got a lot on. But so we've got this common interest because, you know, obviously as a medium, I know that the afterlife is real. And a lot of people come to me and say, where are my loved ones? Are they waiting for me in the afterlife? Will they wait for me? And I've obviously had the privilege over the years of not only being shown by the spirit world, what I call the in-between, the spirit dimensions where people wait for each other and soul families and soul groups come together, and we might touch on that. But also, they've also shown me, the guides also work with me through the ancestral past for healing during readings, and they also show me past lives. So what I find fascinating here is you can bring a completely different perspective to this conversation than I can. Well, I think you can.
Let's hope so. Otherwise, it's going to be a very one-sided conversation.
Well, it might be biased in as much as we both believe in an afterlife and reincarnation. But you can bring the practitioner who's worked with members of the public and seen these different past lives unfold through hypnosis. And I obviously get past life information, if you want, from the deceased. So you're, in other words, you're getting the information from the living and I'm getting it from the deceased, but we're both getting the same insights and learnings. And as we put it together, it's like all the puzzle pieces. It's exciting, isn't it?
Absolutely, definitely. No, it is really exciting because people are always, I think, people have a lot of preconceptions about past life, for one, you know, because they sort of automatically expect that they're going to be some, I don't know, some Native American Indian often, or an Egyptian, but then I have found with a lot of people that quite often the things that you find yourself inexplicably drawn to in life, you know, and lots of people have those kinds of random obsessions, that there can often be some sort of link there, you know, otherwise there's a familiarity to certain things that people then get a bit more curious about, I think.
Yeah, how interesting. So what I thought I'd do is just because I know this conversation is going to lead on, we'll probably need more than one conversation, but just to give, part one, just to give people an insight into you. How did you get into hypnosis, and particularly interested in past life regression? And I know you were telling me, obviously, at the side, you've been quite spiritually aware. So what drew you to past life regression and all of that?
I think I started looking into past life regression like before I trained as a hypnotherapist. I'd always been excuse me, I'd always been interested in it since I was a kid, because when I was a kid I was really fascinated with mythology, especially Greek mythology, and lots of other sort of mythological stuff, but also different times, but very particular times in history I was kind of fascinated by. And then I sort of found out a bit more about it when I got a bit older. But I think also through my childhood and into my sort of teens and early 20s, I had some weird experiences where I sort of, when you're in hypnosis and you're working with hypnosis, you work with that kind of just a natural trance state. Like we all fall into that sort of trance state when we're, you know, zoned out doing the washing up or something, that, you know, you're in that sort of place. And then suddenly finding that I had some experiences where I almost felt like I'd literally spontaneously regressed. Like I'd be hugging someone and close my eyes and then suddenly have a flash of being in a completely different place with them. But at that, really quite strong, you know, that had happened all my life. So just kind of, and then hypnosis, again, apart from the TV stuff I'd always thought was a bit dodgy. I actually went to it as a therapy for myself during a sort of divorce and post-divorce times. I felt I needed some help, and I found a lovely hypnotherapist, and did some sort of work on myself through that. But he was a practitioner of past life regression as well.
Right. Okay.
Lovely man called Jack Weller. I think he sort of said, well, you know, maybe you should have a go at doing some past life work. So I was up for it. I thought it was really interesting. I was finding it really helpful. And so I did. I went for it, and it was just, it was one of those real big light bulb moments that within the context of what was happening in my life, the past life stuff that was coming up was weirdly echoing things that were going on in my life at that time.
Yeah.
Even to the point of, you know, sort of feeling that the person I was with, I'd always felt that, you know, when I met my husband, I knew him from before. And I think that happens with a lot of people.
Yeah,
you know.
Absolutely. I know I've had the same thing. You know, it's that soul, that I describe it as a soul recognition. Your head can't work out how you know that person, but you heart and soul know that person. So your head's trying to catch up with, hang on a minute, you know, this is strange, because it's that familiarity with someone. And it's not just that someone's got a warm face or friendly face.
Oh, no. No,
I've met people like that as well.
No, because exactly that, because it can also be the exact opposite. In my experience, it's not just about, oh, you meet this wonderful man and you know him from a past life and you were probably lovers on top of the Tower of Babylon or something. But it can happen, I think, also to the same degree when you're literally repelled from someone.
Exactly,
you just don't want to be anywhere near them.
And you don't know why. You don't know them or anything. You're just like, oh, this doesn't, you know, resonate. Yeah, and you might well have paths crossed before. Yeah. And that's the thing, it's this level. This is what I try and get people in touch with. This is why this conversation is so good, because I want to get people in touch with their inner self and their spirit and soul, the aspects of them that's eternal. And there's an intelligence that runs through us that isn't in the brain. And you know it isn't, because you have these experiences where you have an instant recognition of somebody.
Yeah, and it can also happen with places, even.
Places, I totally had that. Totally.
I've been in the back of a car. I remember when I was a kid, I can't remember how old I was. I think I was probably under 10 or 11. But I remember driving, and my family are Welsh, so they go back quite a long way Welsh, as far as I know, on both sides. But I remember we were driving up somewhere up into the valleys, and I literally made my dad stop the car. Because we'd driven past this house, and it was like I just had to go, and bless him, my dad, he's no longer with us, but he stopped the car. And I just felt, and I knew the front door, I knew the house, but also it happens a lot with people with places, and you know, where you may well have been there in a previous life. That sense of knowing, isn't it?
Yes, it's a gnosis. I went to Rome and I absolutely knew I'd lived there. I went into Rome and I just felt like I'd come home, and it was a big shock to me because I
Really?
got there and I just thought, whoa, I was interested in Rome for the history, but I was not expecting to go and literally feel that I didn't want to leave. I was there for a week and I felt like I was leaving home.
Really?
And I knew that I'd been there. I just knew.
Were there any particular parts that really got you? Because I remember I've been to Rome once, but only when I was 14. I was really, and I felt something really strong there. But one place I couldn't even hardly go in the Colosseum.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's where I felt it. All there where the Colosseum,
all there,
where all of the
looking up at all the,
and all the buildings where the emperors had all of their,
yes.
I can't remember what that's called now, gosh, my memory's gone, but you know, all that very ancient strip there was just like being transported back into, it wasn't even that I saw a past life unfold. You know, I've had those experiences.
No, I don't think that happens. I don't think that's a necessarily commonplace thing that people have.
Although I have had that.
Yeah,
it didn't. It was this familiarity of I'm home. Like, I just know I've lived here. I don't want to go. I obviously clearly must have been quite happy there because I didn't want to leave. Either that or it's unfinished business. But I think, yes, I think a lot of people who may be not quite so spiritually aware don't even realize that that kind of familiarity or recognition is a pointer to the fact that they have actually lived many times. And what I love about reincarnation and past life therapy is that if you really dig into it and you can see the research, and there's a lot of research to show how helpful it is, never mind anything else, we can talk to that.
Exactly.
I think it's showing us, it's another way of seeing you don't die. You can't die. You know?
Exactly. I know, I must admit, even when I was little and I was brought up as a Christian, I went to Sunday school and I was always fascinated, you know, my Bible stories and all of that sort of thing. But I always had that feeling that it was a very simple idea, which was just simply that how could you do it all in one lifetime? How could you possibly learn enough or experience enough in one lifetime to get it all either completely right or wrong? That's it. That's your lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bit crap, really.
Well, there's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Get it all right off the bat in one go without any rehearsal. This is the thing. I think we do get second chances. Do you?
Yes, absolutely.
Third, fourth, and fifth. I think we just have to keep going.
Yeah, and I think that in terms of even just learning about what you're, I don't know, when you look at what we do to our kids at such a young age, we decide that, you know, they're going to be this or they're going to be that, or they can't be this because they're not good enough at that. And yet there are all these different layers within that person, within that human being. Where do all those layers come from? I mean, there's amazing studies that have been done, you know, particularly in India, where there are children, amazing studies with children who were coming in with knowledge that they could not possibly have had.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to me, that's, you know, the proof that does exist. Okay, people will call it anecdotal evidence, whatever, but you know, there's so many people who've documented cases of children and young people with knowledge. What about child prodigies, for example? Mm-hmm. Children coming in with the ability to speak languages, with the ability to play instruments. Where are these skills magically coming from? I would much prefer to think personally that, yeah, maybe that person was a pianist in 18th century Bavaria who had his life horribly cut short by a terrible accident in an alleyway, and now he's here and he, you know what I mean?
He's continuing on his skills, exactly. And actually, you're talking about, I think, the work of like Dr. Ian Stevenson. I mean, his research is so solid into you know, children that remember past lives. So the extent of his research it's highly credible. Yeah. And I know, obviously, because obviously you've been trained in a like clinical setting, you're no fool, you know what it is to, you know, obviously.
Yeah, and actually from that point of view, you do also know you can, there are, when you're working as a hypnotherapist, there are certain physical things that you see in who you're working with that show you where they're at, within the
Really?
level. Yeah, there are certain physical signs that people will show when they're in trance that show you what level they're at, so that you can safely guide them, because obviously, certain situations you wouldn't want to be necessarily taking someone into a very deep trance.
Right.
So there are ways of knowing. So there are kind of ways of knowing within the person themselves. Some people often would say, oh, maybe I was just making it all up, but then we always use that excuse for sometimes things that are coming in, and we think, well, it's just my imagination.
Well, and
that
also
from...
it's a bit, I do for mediumship, people say that all the time, and students, I know, and it's natural for us, but actually I'm listening to you thinking actually it's a bit of an escape route as well, because if you think, oh, I've just made it up, you haven't got to do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So what have you found in your years of experience of doing like past life regression? Have you noticed, is it transformative? Is it helping? Obviously, I'm imagining it really helps people to heal or make sense, even if they don't believe in past lives,
Yeah, definitely. That's a really interesting aspect of it. I should be able to quote you names and sort of stats, but I'm not kind of very good on that stuff.
We just want a normal conversation.
There is a lot of evidence to show that even if people don't necessarily, some people just come to past life therapy or past life regression as just out of curiosity, and why not? There's nothing wrong with that.
No, that would be me.
If you think you've had a life in Egypt, right, fine, go and explore it. But no, they have found that even people who don't necessarily believe or think it's, possibly all made up, even if they go through the process of having that therapy, past life therapy, that it is therapeutic, it has a positive therapeutic effect. And the people who are often then surprised, like I did have one lovely lady who came for general hypnosis because she had a phobia of drowning, of water in particular. And she tried all sorts, to sort of get around this, and it was impacting her life to the point where, she couldn't sort of like wash her face in the sink. It had become quite extreme. Showers were a no-no. It was her relationship with water was not good. But she also always had a little inkling somewhere in the back of her mind that something had happened, but she'd asked her parents, no accidents when she was little, nothing had happened in this lifetime that she knew about that could have caused it. And literally it was one of those, it doesn't always happen, but it was literally one session, one hit wonder, where she went into regression, she was really relaxed, went in really easily, and very quickly, it was like the previous lifetime, boom, straight back into a drowning scenario.
Wow.
Which was quite a traumatic one.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and not a traumatic session, because that's the beauty of it. You don't, obviously, when you're working in hypnosis, you're only ever, people have a lot of misconceptions about hypnosis, and it also applies to past life work, which is that the hypnotherapist doesn't do anything to you. You're not, the hypnotherapist isn't taking you somewhere. Your subconscious mind is choosing to allow itself to be guided to that point.
So
and
you're in control.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And you can open your eyes anytime. Your subconscious mind will never take you anywhere that you're not able to, Yeah. I mean, obviously it's important to get a reputable hypnotherapist and somebody who is, registered and doesn't just say they did a bit of past life work, because, one thing I must just say, while I think of it, it's really important, anyone who's thinking of exploring hypnosis or past life work, but if you have epilepsy, please don't, because there are contraindications with epilepsy for hypnosis work.
Oh, did not know that.
Yeah, you have to be careful in some cases, just so people know. Don't, make sure you're going to someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's always been my bugbear. It's a bit like mediumship, isn't it? It's like somebody just sets up over a weekend, says they've done a weekend course, they can make a link with spirit. I'm a medium, Same with hypnosis. You're delving into somebody's psyche, into their subconscious, and into the aspect of them that is probably so deeply buried. I saw a diagram once which was like a circle, a ring like this, and it said up the top there, that's the conscious mind, and everything under here is subconscious, superconscious. So most of our programming, our understanding is so buried. You wouldn't want just any old person digging.
No, totally. Our teacher taught us the exact same thing, but did it represented like an iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg is your conscious mind. and
Right.
everything else is under the water.
Yeah.
You know,
And
you can go there in that sense.
yeah. And so this lady, obviously, did it help her to understand that she obviously had a drowning? And I've got so many questions there. Sorry. Did you did you talk her through her passing? Did she see any of that?
No, we didn't do it in that occasion. That's something that I would generally tend to discuss with the client beforehand, or somebody who's a little bit more experienced at having had some regression before, because, you know, it's not a traumatic thing. I've been several times, quite a few times, been taken through the death process and then into the in-between lives. That's a whole nother thing, but that's amazing as well.
Wow. You're gonna have to tell me now, but go on. Let's finish this poor lady's story. Let's tie it up.
No, what were we saying about? Oh yes.
So you didn't walk her through her
I didn't. No, I didn't need to, because she was quite sort of I won't go into any great detail, but you know, there was obviously, you know, when there's a certain distance that someone needs to go or not.
Yeah.
You know, the understand, because you know they're breathing, what's happening with their heart rate, whatever's going on physically, you can see where they're at within the experience. And so obviously you want to take them from quite a detached place.
Yes.
So they're viewing it rather than being part
experiencing
of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. A lot of people think they have to go through some awful experience, but of course you don't. You're just viewing it like it's floating down, viewing it from above.
Wow.
But so she was able, and that's one of the amazing healing things I always found about hypnosis, and especially regression work, is that the subconscious does this amazing thing. I think whether you're doing regression in this lifetime or regression to sometimes people spontaneously regress to a past lifetime when you're doing regression in this life. Let's say, for example, you were doing some regression work to childhood in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Someone might slip back to a previous life.
Wow.
Because what we're looking for ultimately is the origin of the trauma.
Yeah.
So if you can identify with, but you don't have to re-experience that trauma. The mind does this amazing thing. I don't know how it does it. It fascinates me endlessly. But it's almost as though once the subconscious mind has had a chance, as you are now, so let's say we take Claire, that's Claire now, back to whenever or whatever Claire was then.
Yeah.
It's somehow able, and look at it with those eyes, it's somehow able to it just kind of begins a natural healing process where your subconscious mind begins to slot things into place.
Yeah.
And it's
I imagine it like a puzzle. It's like,
yes,
that's why.
like Jenga, like not Jenga. What's that other one where it all fits in? Tetris.
Yeah, Tetris. Yeah. I thought you meant that. Did you know the name escaped me there for a minute? Yeah, so that's fascinating. That fascinating. So not only is it obviously healing, then to have realized, that's why I'm carrying that trauma. Now I don't need to worry about it, because that fear can be released. It's always fear, isn't it, Liz?
Yeah,
it's always fear.
It always is.
So, but then obviously, just like you say, from like my point of view, if I did a past life regression, for me it would be about trying to understand the afterlife. It would be trying to understand my soul essence, my eternal nature. And I think who we really are is who we are in the in-between afterlife state. These are the roles we play. Do you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's why when you start exploring past life work, and that kind of also leads you then, the very first time that this lovely hypnotherapist took me through the death experience, he took me, it was just phenomenal. I mean, I genuinely didn't want to come back.
Really?
And it was so funny, because I remember talking through, going to the past, and up we go, and literally in this kind of space of floating as a sort of energy, starry, amazing. And all I can remember at one point was hearing his voice saying, "And now it's time to come back now, Melissa." and you're feeling, and I actually said to him, "No, it's all right, it's fine, I like it here." And he literally had to coax me into coming back, just because it just felt so wonderful. And those in between, it It does, as you say, totally. You hit the nail on the head, because it's about it. It's allowing you to somehow put into perspective that you are more than you are just now.
Yes.
That you've been put into this little Lissa Berry body. Oh, right, okay. You know, somebody I know likened it, and I love this because I like the idea of it, that it's like an actor putting on different costumes. It's like a different character, like that Quantum Leap. Do you remember? Did you?
Yeah, I loved Quantum Leap. Yeah, I am old enough.
Yeah.
80s child.
No, I mean, that stuff like that, you know, I mean, I think it's within human nature to be fascinated by the concept of reincarnation, because it is more natural, I think, as a concept than the concept of boom, that's it, you're done.
Yeah, and in most, I mean, it really is in the West that we have a problem with it, isn't it?
Oh,
Because
totally.
like in the East, it's totally given, and I've done lots of readings actually for people of Indian culture, you know, where they just naturally just, in fact, they come to me for a reading worried, have my loved ones reincarnated, or are they in the spirit world? Are they okay, or did they reincarnate straight away? They almost they're coming.
What's your take on that? That's something I've had different sort of, with my sort of, obviously I'm a very, you know, novice level in terms of my work with spirit, so I've kind of, my understanding is it's just been like blown apart in this last couple of years, especially with the ancestral stuff. But what's your take on that in terms of, because I feel like we will reincarnate sort of in sort of sometimes in soul groups, sometimes individually, though. I think we just kind of get chucked back in, and then you have to wait for someone else to catch up with you at a later stage in your life. They might not walk into your life till you're 15.
Oh, well, exactly that, I'm sure that happens, but there is absolute, what I do know, absolutely no mistakes, none. The universe doesn't make mistakes in any of this. In fact, my stepmom was saying to me the other day that when she realized the universe was working for her and not against her, she started to actually be able to enjoy life more, because even through the challenges and the struggles, she was recognizing the growth and the lesson and the, you know, the soul path. And I believe that I can only talk from my own personal experience, Liz, because that's all I've got to go on. And I understand that I don't have half of the answers of the universe. And so it's based on my very simplistic human being brain conceptualization as well. But I see two things. I see overwhelmingly loved ones in the spirit world are coming through to their loved ones here, which implies they're waiting. I also get taught by spirit guides about soul groups, soul families and earth families, soul connections, the importance of past life interactions with the people that they're with now. So I believe totally in, if you like, soul groups. So even though we are all ultimately one and we're all connected and we're all from source, so those soul groups probably are like almost like fractals in the universe, just keep we definitely seem to have, all of us in our lives, orbiting around in our satellite, the same group of souls.
That's how you recognize them. How would you recognize them?
Exactly. And because it makes sense that you will, if we are, I believe, journeying through time and space as souls, gaining more and more awareness and understanding, so that we become higher and higher expressions of ourselves, basically making consciousness evolve throughout the whole of the universe as one. And so if you think about it, if you have the same souls crossing paths, they're going to grow, get more from just meeting strangers all the time and starting all over again, aren't they? So I really feel for those people out there that have lost soulmates, who've lost lovers, they will meet again. And
absolutely. My partner, I know we've had other lifetimes together that didn't work out particularly well. And I knew him instantly when I met him in this lifetime. Absolutely, literally saw the person and was just, had that happen with my first husband, you know, that exactly the same thing, instant recognition.
And I've had the same thing, just absolutely, where you absolutely know that person, you know, there's no doubt in your mind, because actually your mind's going, how do I know you? This is amazing, you know, and you're vibing already in a way that you would have to build over time with people you just met. So I know that people not only wait for each other in the spirit dimensions of life, but also choose to journey again together to help each other learn and grow. And if you do come in on your own, like you say, maybe you come in and they come in 15 years apart, they still find you, they still connect with you. The bonds of love just deepen and deepen.
Absolutely. So and what's interesting to me is the way that also those bonds of love deepen and deepen through the playing out of different dynamics.
Yes.
You know, through the playing out of different relationships. I mean, I sometimes feel like my daughter must have been my mum in a previous life. Honestly, I mean, she's amazing because my daughter's incredible. She's, you know, both my kids are amazing. I'm sure they've possibly also both been my children in a previous life, and I abandoned them. But I've had to feed them so much in this lifetime, I think. But no, she is just. There've even been times when I've Freudian slipped and called her mum.
Wow. And you know what? I posted a video on my YouTube channel that's got quite a lot, probably more views than any other one, believe it or not, Liz. It was about reincarnation.
Oh, really?
And loads of people were saying, I know that my son is my granddad from, you know, years back. I'm recognizing that soul in him. And I also, to this point of you saying, what do I think about, you know, how soon we reincarnate? I also think we limit ourselves. We have to remember that there's no time and space anyway.
No, absolutely. It's not linear. It's not linear.
And I also think that the soul, our soul, can probably have an aspect of itself in the physical whilst it's in the spiritual. So you could be going home to dad, and maybe an aspect of dad's consciousness is already reincarnated here, but he's still very much there. Who knows? Yeah. I just don't think we should limit the soul. I don't think we have got a clue about energy and the universe.
No, when I was lucky once. I went to do a Life Between Lives course. I really should have written his name. I feel it was quite a while ago now, but it was a Portuguese professor who was teaching a day's course on sort of life between life regression. And there was an element of that was actually incredibly comforting, reassuring, but also eminently sensible in a weird sort of a way.
Right.
I know we all think that obviously life is this, you know, series of random, unfortunate events or whatever they want to call it. But so many people then can't deny that in their lives they'll have these consistent patterns or something that, you know, they don't want to accept that. It's like, oh, but actually, when you then look at, like you said before, you go to the life in between lives and you understand the purpose then becomes so clear.
Yes.
So that you can say, that's why that happened in that life just before. Because I did that and no. Okay, yes. So, all right, so I'm going to agree next time. And, you know, the agreements that we will show up for one another in another life. To show that's beautiful.
Absolutely. And also I love what you're saying about the fact that, you know, I think sometimes we just want to control and limit for our fear of losing someone that we love, and having loved perhaps the part that you've played in this life together, the role that you've had. You wouldn't necessarily want to think, oh, well, I'm not going to be husband and wife again, or I don't want him to be my brother in the next one. But actually, I love what you're saying, that love can just deepen and deepen and deepen, because when you've had every single expression of it,
exactly,
the two of those souls are going to be absolutely
totally. So you know what a mother's love feels like. You know what it is to be that daughter with that. You know what the dynamic is to have been the person that killed your person that loved you. You know, the deep. You know, it is quite dramatic in a way, but I don't see how else you could. If you do take that analogy of it being, of your soul being like an actor, let's say then, but also don't forget that the best actors are shamans. The best actors are those who kind of, you know, straddle the worlds anyway, because they can channel and they can sort of pick up.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'd have to play that many different parts to get a full sense of it, wouldn't you?
You would. And also, I really believe that we are all heading back to unconditional love. And in order to be unconditional love and to exist in unconditional love, we've got to have experienced all of these different expressions of it to recognize
or not experienced it.
Well, yes, exactly. To have experienced the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So that when you are experiencing it, you are recognizing it. So if you're watching this now and you're one of those people that write to me saying, I can't find love at all, why am I on my own? Sometimes, as crappy as this sounds, in order to be able to now go on to experience an amazing love, you have to have the understanding or really walk the path of not having it, because otherwise you don't recognize it. You know, it's the duality of everything, isn't it, really?
But it's like that thing, isn't it, of saying that, you know, you don't see the star unless the sky is black. I know it's a bit trite in some ways, but you won't. You can't have one. You can't really have one without the other. And
we are all headed back to that love. We're all completely perfect in our own ways, perfectly imperfect, and we're all part of unconditional love. That's our natural born right. We will all have it. And there's something in us, I think, when we incarnate into the earth, where our soul knows, I'm not home now, I'm traveling, and it wants that sense of back up with unity.
Well, absolutely. And I feel, because, you know, I mean, I lost my dad this year. I said, and I know that he's home. I know that with my whole heart. And that's, you know, he's sort of, I've been lucky enough to have my own sort of kind of relationship with him, sort of in spirit and before. But I felt that from him, you know, before he passed as well, that overwhelming sense that he knew that's where he was going, even though he was deep in dementia. His consciousness somehow still knew that's where he was headed.
Absolutely, because the soul knows where it's going. That's what I'm trying to say to you. It's that intelligence that goes beyond the brain. You know, if the brain dies and our mind doesn't operate in the same way, function through the brain, that is nothing to do with the wholeness of the soul and the intelligence that's running through your dad that doesn't need that brain.
I know, but isn't it interesting as well that you know, we've been taught, you know, and particularly, like you said before, in Western society, we've been taught for so long that it's only those people in certain positions that can interpret that level of intelligence or that level of ability to connect.
Yes.
Which is why I know we talked before about the fact that within Christianity, the original doctrines did incorporate reincarnation, and they were deliberately done away with.
Yeah, it's crazy. You were showing me a book, weren't you?
I get it.
Yeah, I do, definitely, because I've got to read this book.
Yes, or shall I share it? It's a fantastic book I found it. I'm a bit of an Oxfam bookshop buff, really, and this was in my local Oxfam bookshop. Donald Offwood. Can you see that one?
Yeah, Donald Offwood, Reincarnation and Christianity, Our Spiritual Heritage.
Yeah. So basically on the very first page, it says, at the Council of Constantinople in AD 553, the bishops of the day voted reincarnation out of Christianity. With the removal of reincarnation as a rationale for life, the church slowly evolved a series of dogmas that gradually gave it power over the people. And it then says, the path a person follows towards spiritual understanding and enlightenment is of no consequence. It is only important that steps are being taken which lead all to an understanding of life. Muhammad, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, all understood the nature of the concept we call God. Anyway, so yeah, you know, it was there. They just did away with it because
it was there, yeah. So and the damage it's done, really, when you think about it, because obviously it was in our consciousness, it was in our understanding culturally, it's been eradicated. And I really feel, you know, it's like the work I do with the spirit world and mediumship. You know, people think, oh, it's wishful thinking, you're vulnerable, you know, you haven't, sometimes I hear people say horrible things like you haven't grown up, you know, you've got imagination, and you know, no, This is part of our human experience. And I know people will watch this and they'll be thinking, yeah, I've had that recognition. Or I've met someone that I really feel I already knew and couldn't work out. Or I've been to a place before and I just knew I've been there. You know, there's no rationale mentally for that.
No, but you know, I mean, I personally, I don't, you know, God, if we knew, if there were never any why do we need to know every rationale for everything?
Yeah.
You go to a cave, you know, in depths of the south of France or the Pyrenees or somewhere and see, you know, paintings that people have drawn thousands and thousands of years ago that you know, embody concepts that we're still, it's what, you know, it's still there. It's just that we've lost that. I don't know. I think you're right. I think it's a bit of cop out as well sometimes. You know, people don't want to take responsibility sometimes.
Yeah, and I think we've also got to the point where we've kind of replaced one God with another, in as much as we've got rid of religion and made science that authority. And obviously true science or true scientists, no, they don't know everything. That's what keeps the awe and wonder about it, because they're trying to explore and find out. And that's what, you know, that's why I've always loved the scientific element and looking at it in the field that I'm in.
Absolutely.
I don't
near-death experience. You know, have you worked with that lovely Dr. Penny Sartori?
I haven't worked with her. I have had interactions with her. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. She's you know, obviously Dr. Penny Sartori worked for the NHS in the UK, funny enough in Wales, and she was working with the dying and obviously was studying the near-death, well, not really, they were dying, it was more deathbed vision she was studying, but but she was talking about how, you know, offering up case studies, like, you know, how people, say a family were in an accident, for instance, in a car tragically, and one was killed at the scene, but the other one was taken into hospital but didn't know the other one had died. But that person would still, as they were then dying in hospital, say, so and so's with me now, I can see them, they're fine, they're telling me it's okay to go. So she, you know, there's all these different elements to this, you see, like you're saying, if you bring in the regression, if you bring in the children with past life memories, if you bring in deathbed vision, if you bring in near-death experiences.
But actually, but in your experience then, though, would you find that perhaps people that you see, people that you read for, if they're happy to grasp the concept of the fact that we don't die, yes, our physical bodies, but that we, our essence, our souls, whatever you want to call it, doesn't die, are they then, do you think, more accepting of the possibility of reincarnation, or is that sort of given, they automatically? Because otherwise, that's the other thing I've always thought, was if there wasn't reincarnation, no, it just doesn't work for me.
No, I find it's interesting, and maybe I have been in the past partly to blame, but you know, I had a very strict accredited training in mediumship on evidential mediumship, and in the past, traditionally, mediums have been told to steer well clear of past lives, even though the guides talk about them.
Why was that? Do you know why that was?
Because they were trying to find their credibility in a world that just did not believe them. And so they were trying to provide evidence or information that could be factually checked. And so to say a guide is here and they're telling you about a past life that you can't factually check was almost making it, you know, but you know, almost doing the credibility of mediumship, if that was possible, making it any worse. But at the same time, and this has been almost my bugbear, that wasn't my experience of it. So once I'd done my traditional training and my guides were telling me about all these past lives, I started to bring, because you know, I'm really scooting around here, but just to put it in a nutshell, I had memories, I believe, that were past life memories bubbling up through my subconscious as a child. And I had all sorts of paranormal experiences, but I have found with the public that as I've started to talk about reincarnation or past lives, it's become more acceptable, but there's a fear. There's a real fear. And I think it's because it's not a fear of having lived before per se, it's a fear of letting go of the person that they love. They don't want to think that they're going to be reincarnating or coming into another life, or because they're not able,
Yeah,
yeah, to
because
understand.
they're so heavily identified with who they are now.
Exactly, they can't see the bigger picture. So this
Yeah,
is why I wanted, this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this with you,
yeah,
because it gets the conversation going. And I absolutely know that, to me, reincarnation is real, because
yeah,
I
me
mean, there's
too.
nothing anyone could, you know, I've seen deceased people, so I know the afterlife is real. And I've had experiences myself where I've had soul recognition, recognized places and people that I know from past
Yeah.
experiences are
I,
real.
rem- I remember as a child, I went on a school trip. It was probably one of the earliest experiences I had. I went on a school trip. Excuse me, putting my hair up. It was getting on my nerves. We went to Warwick Castle on a school trip.
Oh, yeah.
Um, all lovely and exciting and everything, and down into the dungeons. And I didn't have what could be described as the normal kid kind of. I totally freaked.
Okay.
I literally had to be taken out of the place
Really?
because I walked into this one, but it was only in one section of the dungeon. It was really
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
And I literally went round the corner in this one section of the dungeon, and I could remember smelling things, and I swear I could actually see something hanging, but then in the one of those things. But maybe that
Yeah.
was just, but I swear it was one of the earliest experiences of being I'd been there before in some,
Transported into another
yeah, it
time.
was
Well, it
so
probably
horrible.
triggered a memory, didn't it?
Yeah, it felt like more exactly. And I
Yeah.
think, people confuse that then with, if they have that instant knowing, and then, your conscious mind goes, no, 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 no.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Your mind tries to catch up
Yeah,
with it, the soul knows. And I do think, I'm listening to you thinking I hope people can feel, if you're going through a really tough time at the moment, or if you feel like you made mistakes, or you should have done things differently, or whatever,
yeah.
because we're not all perfect. None of us want to be. Who wants to be? But it's like,
Very boring.
yeah, but it is totally. But I also think, like, I get people contacting me all the time that are also really fearful of death. It's like,
Yeah.
why don't sweat the small stuff quite so much, because guess what? You've
Oh,
probably died loads of times already, and
oh,
yet here you are.
there's a really wonderful thing. I mean, again, some people would think it's completely bonkers, but I've experienced it myself, with some clients and also with myself. And there are certain physical ailments, perhaps, for example, that people have come for hypnosis for. It's for physical, this is not that I'm saying this is any kind of substitute for, checking out that, seeing your
Conventional
doctor,
medicine.
and
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, it's really important. But there've been I've had certain clients who had been through all of, various sort of medical explorations, couldn't find anything wrong with them, and things were absolutely fine, but the problem was still happening. So
Wow.
they came for hypnosis, and there was one particular guy who I remember had a terrible, terrible pain in his shoulder. And we did some relaxation stuff, we did various things. And I remember in the one session, I was like, oh, come on, let's do a bit of past life. And he was up for it. So, but as we were about to start, he just suddenly said, and it was literally just before we started, he suddenly said to me, he was like, oh, do you know what? I've always sometimes felt like it just feels like somebody's just going to run a spear right through me and
Oh,
blow me. We went into something, and it was very, very much that kind of scenario, but it's
wow.
almost like he had that in some level of his consciousness, he had
Yeah.
that awareness.
Yeah, it was holding it in
The
this body.
amazing thing was that it went.
Wow. See, I love
I'm
these
not saying it
stories.
doesn't always happen, but in
No.
some instances, and even things like marks, moles, marks, certain things, points on the body that can be put. It's really bizarre. There's
Yeah.
been some cases where they've seen within the same family somebody being born with a mark in the same place
Wow.
and things like that.
Yeah, totally.
So
It's all these things that
yeah,
that's when you start to think you can't just sit here and just dismiss everything. You just
no,
can't, it's not acceptable anymore, is it? That's
no,
kind of,
not at all.
it's like,
And it's like you said, nothing's a mistake.
no, nothing's a mistake. And I feel like, and that's hard for some people to hear.
Yeah, of course
Because,
it is.
Obviously, I mean, I'm doing readings for people who have lost children and things like that.
I know.
Genuinely, you've got to look at it it takes a shift of perception, doesn't it, to look at it from a much bigger play point than just this life, this tiny life that might last you 80 years, 90 years if you're lucky. If you get to 100, you know, wow, you know,
Yeah.
the journeys that we have together are so short. And you know, I feel like it's hard to hear that actually it's meant to be. Do you know what I mean? That there is purpose and reason behind everything, and that nothing is lost. And it might not, here's the thing, it might not be that it should have happened that somebody passed. It just might be that it did because of the life choices everyone was making. But you know what?
Not just you, it's, you know, the interplay of everyone around
Exactly,
you. And,
yeah.
you know,
All the
what's
decisions
happening in that
everyone's making.
person. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's not, no, don't apologize. I shouldn't be talking over you, but I'm just,
Oh no, don't be silly.
for people that I know that are suffering, it's not necessarily that their child, you know, chose that awful way to pass. It's that circumstances led to that based on the energy of the choices of everyone involved in their mindset and things. But, you know, it'll be okay. You'll come back together and you might choose to do it again. One thing I was going to ask you, do you believe in your experiences that people run sort of parallel lives? So almost like they'll experience something over and over until they've grasped that lesson? Do you?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I do, because I think also something that there's an aspect of past lives where you can also look at it. Yeah, it's like people think that maybe you've only had a few past lives. You know, you could potentially have had hundreds. Hundreds and hundreds. You know, who's to say, who's to know? And you know, they're all kind of not necessarily, I mean, I know there's some aspect of shamanic work where they that blows my mind, actually. I do like to have a bit of that sometimes, but it's kind of like, oh, it's all kind of happening parallel, going on at the same time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh, I see that. I work shamanically with my spirit guides, and I see all that all happening all at once.
Yeah, but that also that makes sense, because you can, and I'm sure lots of people have experienced this, those times sometimes where you almost feel like you've time slipped.
Yeah.
You sort of,
or deja vu.
Yeah, or you sometimes have that split second of, I sometimes believe it's that part where your soul being is sort of, you know, not fully sort of in consciousness, and you suddenly forget where you are for a moment, almost. You're actually in this lifetime driving the car. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Moments. But to go back to what you said just a minute ago, though, I've found myself, and with a lot of people, that especially with the really difficult experiences that we've had, you know, losing children, you know, we had a very tragic death in my family a few years back, and you know, but the belief for me, and the knowing, not even just the belief, but the sort of understanding experience that's led you to know that there is more, and you are going to have another chance, or you are going to reunite with that family member. You are, my cousin will see his son again. Do you know what I mean? This kind of stuff. It actually makes things better. It really does make things much better. It makes
more you can tolerate it, or endure it is the word I'm looking for.
Do you know what? I think it actually helps you understand it more.
Yes. Yeah.
Having that perspective, in a sense, because if you are going to sort of limit yourself, perhaps, I'm not saying anyone's wrong, because obviously everyone's totally entitled to believe whatever they like, but you know, if you want to limit yourself to even consider that possibility, then you know that's going to make things really, really tough. Whereas if you start opening up the possibilities that, like you said, we don't die. There is, we are so much more than this.
Absolutely.
You know, it actually really, I think more people find that helpful than not.
And what I'm imagining in the therapy that you offer is you give somebody a sort of an insight for themselves.
Well, and it's a constructive insight, because, for example, most people will often people come to hypnotherapy and past life stuff as a last resort.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like they'll have explored maybe several different sort of therapy modalities, or that, you know, it's either often sheer curiosity or a last resort.
Right.
There's often not a lot in between.
We need to change that, don't we?
Yeah. but people are often really pleasantly surprised that what it does is it gives you insights into yourself.
Yes.
And also into your own ability to understand and heal patterns within your own life, perhaps some of your own behaviors, some of your own choices, that once you get an understanding or a dynamic between you and someone else in a relationship, and I've had that myself, I've seen it in a lot of people where they suddenly go, oh God, that's why my brother makes me go absolutely, or it's hard to describe in that sense what sometimes happens. It's like it's like another layer of the onion of life that we sort of like, oh, okay, we can get rid of that one now.
Exactly. I've understood that now. That can go. I can release it. Yeah. It's so fascinating. Honestly, Liz, we could talk forever. I know we've got
families to feed now, haven't we?
Well, yeah, we do, but also I think give some people so much to chew over and think about, and then we can come back. So I know you've got an Instagram account where people can find you.
Yes, it's called Spirit of the Bee.
Lovely. So if we want to reach out and connect with you, and because you're such an interesting person, because you do obviously your voiceover work, and this isn't something that you're obviously doing full time, but it is something that
I think a lot of us these days are having to diversify and adapt, especially after the last couple of years of the pandemic. I used to do some teaching work and various other things, which obviously went at the beginning of the pandemic. So I like a lot of people, I think, do a couple of different things, try and be versatile and adaptable these days.
Absolutely, I think that's
but also stuff that you're really interested in and passionate about.
And it's really, I want to thank you so much for coming on and doing this chat with me, because
thanks for asking me. It's been so lovely.
And I kind of outing you in a sense, I know, but I think when we come together, it's so powerful. You don't know who's going to find it. You don't know who's going to find the words healing, or you just don't know if it's going to get someone through a really difficult day. So
exactly.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me. It's been really lovely. I've really enjoyed it. Much time has just gone shoo.
I know that's because there is no such thing as time, isn't it? This is what happens when people of high frequency, emotions and spirituality come together. The time disappears. Maybe not for everyone else doing.
We don't need time. We don't need time anymore.
We're timeless, eternal beings. Although it is dinner time.
I know. What time is it? I've got no idea. I
don't know. But
what are you having for dinner tonight then? What are you having?
I don't know. I got to go and focus on that. Just Tammy saying it is actually, there is such thing as time, Claire. My body needs it. So I'm going to go
see what's in the fridge.
I'm going to say, right before you do that, I'm going to say to everyone watching, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. Obviously, if you want to leave any comments, you can do. We'd love to hear your own feedback, your own experiences.
Can I just say one little thing? So sorry. I was just going to say, because we talked earlier before, if anyone is really interested in reading about past life regression, a good place to start is with Brian Weiss.
Yes.
You've read all of those.
I have, Many Lives, Many Masters, and all the brilliant books.
It's a good one to start.
Good dip your toe in.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. So but maybe people have got book suggestions they can put in the comments anyway. But this is a community. I'm trying to just bring like-minded people together who are open-minded, who can come together respectfully, talk compassionately, but we can have opposing opinions. That's fine. If we're all coming together and chewing over the fat, that's good. But if anyone's got any comments they want to leave, I'd love to see your own personal experiences. That'd be amazing. But for now, Liz, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody watching. Namaste, Liz.
Namaste. Bye.
Bye.